Hello, and welcome to the Fighting Moose podcast. I'm your host and narrator, Jason Hendrickson. This is a podcast where I retell stories, some fictional and some historical, that can be enjoyed by people of all ages. Today, we read a short history about the city of Baltimore from the book Great Cities of the United States, written by Gertrude Van Duyn Southworth and Stephen Elliott Kramer. A few days ago, my family and I visited Baltimore, and it was our home base for a couple of days. I found some very decently priced plane tickets, and we decided to spend a few days out in the DC area. So as with all my stories, this is the inspiration for today's story. Now, the story was written back in 1916, so some of the information is out of date, so I will include a link to DataUSA.io, which has more current data about the city. Now, to go back a few episodes, I did find out yesterday that there may have been a problem with the episode titled Learning to Send. I went to go key up that episode last night, and I found that it wouldn't play any audio. When I went to try to figure out what was wrong, I found that I didn't upload an MP3 file, I uploaded a PDF by accident. Oops. Well, I got that squared away now, so you should be able to listen to that one now if you haven't already. Thank you for your patronage to the podcast, it is greatly appreciated. Now, let's turn to today's story. I hope you enjoy. Let's begin.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Baltimore. Near the head of Chesapeake Bay stands Baltimore, the largest of our southern cities and the seventh city in size in the United States. Because of her importance as a southern railroad center and her excellent harbor on the largest bay of the Atlantic coast, Baltimore is called the Gateway to the South. Great ships from all parts of the world unload their cargoes at her docks and take in return products from nearly every section of the United States. The railroads bring to Baltimore vast quantities of iron, coal, and grain from the west, and up from the south, ships and trains come laden with raw sugar, tobacco, fruits, and vegetables. Here, the oysters, fish, and crabs from Chesapeake Bay and the products of the rich farmlands of Maryland and Virginia find a ready market. Knowing these things, one can surmise what the city's leading industries and exports must be. Baltimore is the world's greatest oyster market. She leads the world in the canning of vegetables and fruits. She is one of the country's largest banana markets, and more corn is exported from this city than from anywhere else in America. Baltimore is a great sugar refining center. She leads the world in the making of straw hats, and among her foremost industries are the manufacture of clothing and the making of tobacco goods. Thanks to the coal and iron she receives, Baltimore builds cars, ships, and almost everything made of iron and steel. Then, too, the city has the largest copper refining plant in America. If this story had been written a few years ago, it would tell you that Baltimore's streets were narrow, that miles of them were paved with cobblestones or were not paved at all, and that the city generally was developing very slowly. But today, we have a quite different Baltimore. On February 7th and 8th, 1904, a great fire swept the business section of the city, destroying $125 million worth of property. While the ruins were still smoldering, the courageous people, refusing all help from outside, began to plan a bigger and better Baltimore. The work began in the burned part of the city. The narrow downtown streets were widened and paved, and new and better buildings took the place of the burned ones. Most of these new buildings are 3 or 4 stories high, though a few tall ones range from 10 to 16 stories. Fortunately, 3 of Baltimore's oldest and most imposing buildings escaped the fire: the post office, the city hall, and the courthouse. 2 important streets cross this newly built business section: Charles Street, running north and south, and Baltimore Street, running east and west. Baltimore Street is the chief business thoroughfare, and north and south of it are the wholesale, financial, and shipping districts. The city owned little wharf property of importance before 1904, but the fire made it possible to buy all the burned district fronting the harbor. This the city purchased and laid out in a wonderful system of public wharves and docks open to the commerce of the world. Pier 4 at the foot of Market Place has been set aside for the use of market boats, and here small crafts bring much of the fruit, vegetables, fish, crabs, and oysters which make the markets of Baltimore among the most attractive in the United States. There are 11 of these markets, and on market days they are a most interesting sight with their busy, jostling crowds all eagerly buying or selling. But these great improvements in the business center and along the waterfront are only part of the good results which have followed the fire. In past years, Baltimore had many miles of open sewers, an unhealthful arrangement which caused much sickness. The very year after the fire, work was begun to do away with this evil, and today the city has a sanitary, up-to-date sewer system. Another important work of the city betterment plan has to do with a stream called Jones Falls, which used to flow in an open channel right through the center of the city. This stream now flows through great concrete tubes, over which is a broad highway running diagonally across the city, all the way from the docks to the railroad terminal. Then, too, the city has a new water system, great enough to supply the entire city with purified water from Gunpowder River. And besides all these, a great dam, the 3rd longest in the world, has been built across the Susquehanna River at McCall Ferry, furnishing electric power which lights the streets, runs the cars, and supplies power for many of the city's factories. From the harbor, Baltimore stretches away to the north and west, covering 32 square miles. Within the city are green hills and pleasant valleys, and a chain of beautiful parks with many splendid old trees bordering the boulevards which connect them. 2 of these parks, Mount Vernon Place and Utah Place, are near the center of Baltimore. The former is cross-shaped, and here stands the famous monument to George Washington, the first statue erected to his memory in this country. Utah Place is a long parkway made beautiful with statuary, flowers, fountains, and winding walks, and on either side stand handsome residences. Covering 700 acres of picturesque rolling land is Druid Hill Park, with its miles of driveways, its ancient oak trees, its athletic grounds, tennis courts, botanical palace, zoo, and a large reservoir lake. The rugged scenery of Gwynns Falls Park challenges Druid Hill's claim to unequaled beauty. In Patterson Park, there is the largest artificial swimming pool in the United States. Besides its many swimming pools and indoor baths, the city has organized a system of portable baths, small houses which are moved from corner to corner in the crowded sections, supplying hot and cold water shower baths to many thousands each year. Baltimore has won a reputation as an educational center through the splendid equipment and wonderful accomplishments of Johns Hopkins University, which is noted throughout the world, especially for its work along medical lines. Gosher College for Women ranks with the best women's colleges in the South. The Baltimore College of Dental Surgery is the oldest college of its kind in the world. The Walters Art Gallery and the Peabody Institute, with its art gallery, conservatory of music, and library, afford opportunities for the study of art, music, and literature. With its more than 550,000 inhabitants, Baltimore, like Philadelphia, is a city of homes and is renowned for its good old Southern hospitality. Way back in 1634, a company of Catholic pilgrims came to America to found a colony where their religion would not be interfered with. King Charles I of England granted to these people a certain territory north of the Potomac River, which he named Maryland in honor of his wife Mary, who was also a Catholic. The founder of the province was Lord Baltimore, and from the very beginning, settlers of all beliefs were made heartily welcome. About 100 years after the planting of this Catholic colony, 60 acres of land on the north side of the Patapsco River was purchased and laid out for a city. To honor the generous-hearted founder of Maryland, the place was named Baltimore. One of the most thrilling events in Baltimore's history led to the writing of our national song, The Star-Spangled Banner. Francis Scott Key of Baltimore was a prisoner on a British man-of-war in 1814 when the British attacked Fort McHenry. Fort McHenry guarded Baltimore, and if the fort fell, the city too must go. All day, the English ships fired shot and shell at the fort. During all the night, the attack went on. Anxiously, Key watched through the darkness. Could the fort hold out against such a terrible bombardment? From time to time, by flashes from bursting bombs, he could see the outlines of the fort. Then came the dawn. In the early morning light, Key saw our flag still waving, and in his joy he wrote on the back of an old letter the words of the song that has since become so famous. A wide thoroughfare which follows the curve of the waterfront for several miles is named in honor of Francis Scott Key. Key Highway, it is called, and it leads to Fort McHenry, which the War Department has lately given over to the care of the city of Baltimore.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fighting Moose Podcast. Please join us next time as we read another exciting story. Today's music was provided by the artist Analog by Nature, and the audio clips were provided from NASA. For more information to download and or listen to audio or materials from all our recordings, or to contact us, please visit www.thefightingmoose.com, or you can follow the links in the show notes. And as always, try and do a random act of kindness every day.
Mission complete, Houston. After serving the world for over 30 years, the space shuttle has earned its place in history and has come to a final stop.